Alright, y'all, how you going? Welcome back to the channel. We're looking at something pretty interesting, I reckon, tonight. We're looking at some Aussie muscle cars found in a massive Chook shed in the Outback. Sounds pretty crazy, right? Now, this is actually a classic. This video, well, at least the YouTube video, is from 2012. That's pretty long ago, honestly, in YouTube world. And you know, the actual clip from whatever show or whatever it's from, it might be even older than that. I'm not really sure. This has been suggested a couple times over the years, going back to all the way to 2021. I have the earliest one from Robert Chook, so it's cool to finally get to this. I appreciate it. I don't know if you're still watching, Robert, but thank you for that. This comes from a random upload from a channel just called Sham Man, so make sure to use the link down there. Check out this whole thing and browse their stuff. But yeah, let's check this out. I mean, barn finds, you know, I'm vaguely familiar with seeing on American media, right? American shows, you know, American barn finds. It's pretty interesting when you can find some hidden gems and just really cool muscle cars or older cars in general that have been kind of abandoned in an old structure, and some of them end up being in really good shape. They might be really rare, and you know, it's pretty fascinating that something so cool or so significant might not have seen the light of day for decades, right? It's really just kind of a fascinating thing that can be eventually found and restored. You know, someone can buy it and own it and give it love and give it, you know, put it on the road. It's just, there's so many ways to go about this topic, and it's really interesting. But hey, let's waste no more time. Let's get into this and see what we find in this Chook shed in the Outback. What kind of Aussie muscle lies behind the door? Let's see.
Huge shed. Yep, there's cars in here. Not even locked. Wow.
Oh my God, look at that. Oh, wait a sec, barn find? I know that's the term, right? This is a little more than a barn with like an old rusty car inside. We're talking line, a row, another row, and a middle row of cars. These look to be in pretty damn good shape too. Holy smokes. All right. What's the story?
That's more than just a car collection. It's joints full of muscle cars. Let's check them out.
How exciting. What's the story here, folks? I mean, they've got some dust on them, naturally. But an easy cleanup, right? Might do wonders for these. Look at the blinds in the back of that one. Rainy outside, but hey, they've been protected. Tires, yeah, might need some updating. I'm gonna bet they're pretty dry rotted. Hope this song isn't copyrighted, man. That would suck, right? You just never know. YouTube likes to strike anything they can. Oh, look at that. Beauty. Dude, I love the old colors, too. I mean, you know it's old muscle cars when you see all these greens and oranges and purples and pinks popping. Just a different era, man.
When the owner said he had a car collection, I had no idea that he was talking about a collection like this. This massive Chook shed here is chock-a-block full of muscle cars.
Dude.
Look around, I reckon there'd be between 90 and 100 very desirable cars here. This guy...
Okay, that's even more than I thought. When I saw just that one shot, we couldn't really see. It was dark in there. We couldn't see how deep it actually went. I was going to guess there was like 25 cars in there, which is a lot. 80 or 90 or close to 100? What a freaking find. What is the story here, man? These are in great shape, too. How exciting would this be? It'd be equally exciting. It'd be a different experience. I've never really experienced something like this. You know, it'd be different than going to a museum, seeing cars that have been, you know, preserved, restored, you know, famous race cars, famous celebrity cars, whatever the story is with museums, right? That is cool, of course, in its own way. Going to, if you're lucky enough to know someone or see someone or be a collector and you have 20 or 30 amazing cars in one spot, of course, that's exciting. Yeah, but it's an active collection, right? going to a car auction, going to a car show, right? In a parking lot somewhere, awesome cars meet, everyone meets up and has a good time. Of course, that's fun. But this is different than all of those. Like I said, there's something fascinating about a collection of cars that, may have not seen the road in years and years and years. And then being preserved in pretty good nick, right? I mean, it's just, this would be so fascinating, man. Let's look.
Knew what he was buying. I've got a lot of ground here to cover, so I'm going to try and do as much as I can for you on as many cars as I can cover.
Cool.
This car here caught my eye first, and this is a very important car too, the 1967 XR GT Falcon. The reason it's important, it's because this car started the muscle car scene in Australia.
Nice.
Before this thing came out, there was mainly 6-cylinder sedans and a lone AP6 V8 Valiant, which wasn't a bad thing, don't get me wrong, but they were nothing like these things. So Ford Australia decided they were going to come out and smash the opposition, and they did. And these cars were designed to do one thing, and that was to go out and win the Galahad 500 Bathurst. And guess what? They did. They came across the line in first place, and that changed history forever. They're an awesome piece of machinery, these things. They put a lot of effort into them.
That's
awesome. They
awesome.
called them Mustang bred. They had the legendary 289 Windsor under the hood.
Oh, yeah.
A 4-speed heavy-duty manual trans and a heavy-duty rear end. The other unique thing with these XR GT Falcons too is you could get them in one colour only, GT Gold.
No way.
There's a small batch of Galahad Silver GT Falcons that came out for the Galahad Cigarette Company for the promotion of Bathurst.
Wow.
Other than that, it had to be gold.
Okay, first of all, forgive my ignorance. I would love to know who this guy is. He seems really knowledgeable, and I think that's going to be great, right? Because I love hearing interesting facts, deep facts about cars, especially like that. Certain trims coming in one color and stuff, or in this case, this car being, the beginning of an era, right? Arguably the first muscle car in Australia. Really cool connections to the Mustang. You can tell that this has that Mustang thoroughbred kind of DNA ingrained in it, right? And this is just a proper Aussie muscle car and arguably one that started it all. Really cool, and we're just on the first car. I don't know how many are in this video, and I'm sure it's not possible to go through 80 or 90 at once. But I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think this is a great suggestion. I think I should have done this a long time ago. And I think this guy is awesome. I think we're going to hear some really cool stuff all about this. So I hope you're enjoying the video. Throw a thumbs up on there if you are. It is estimated that 697 XRGTs were built during 1967 and 68. All were painted GT gold with the exception of 13 cars, which he mentioned that were some sort of silver company for, what was it, tobacco company or something? Or cigarette? I don't remember. But very interesting right there. The Bathurst winning car was driven by Harry Firth and Fred Gibson. It was painted ivy green metallic. Awesome stuff. Pretty cool. They set out to do something and they accomplished it, right? Just showing in cars in general, but it's especially Australian car history and culture, how important has Mount Panorama Bathurst, racing there, how important has it been? It's been extremely important. It's arguably one of the bones that makes up the skeleton of what Australia car culture and muscle cars have been over the course of time, right? I feel like Bathurst has been very important key to pushing manufacturers and people to make awesome race cars, to make iconic moments, and it has definitely helped shape the car industry. That trickles down to a lot of different avenues, down to cars in people's driveways or garages. I think it's pretty cool. $3,800. Wow, those are the days, huh? Of course, the famous Ford 289. Good horsepower and torque, and respectable numbers for back then.
The XR came the XT-GT.
Yeah.
Now, leading
These things are cool.
GT Ford expert David Frake from GT Ford Performance tells me the XT-GT was one of the best GT Falcons to drive out of the whole GT Falcon range. I know that might sound hard to believe. You've got your legendary GT Phase 3s and all the rest of it.
Right.
He reckons this was the most refined car to drive out of the whole lot. This little 230 horsepower 302 Windsor was a beautiful upgrade. They had more appointments in the interior. They were just upgraded in certain areas to make the whole car drive a little bit better than the more raw XR-GT. Now,
Very
unfortunately,
nice.
the XT-GT didn't share the same success at Bathurst that the XR-GT did. The Ford factory team were doing extremely well, but they got a hole in the radiator.
Oh.
The car popped a head gasket.
Oh.
Unfortunately, the race was over for them. Up until that point, they were doing extremely well and looking very promising for the win.
Right. That's just it, though, especially at tracks like Bathurst, right? Very demanding. You can have a great car, you can have a car that's fast. But that's just part of the equation, right? You got to have a car that can endure the punishment and the time, the laps, the mileage involved with finishing, long races at Bathurst. Very cool. It's estimated that 1,415 XT GTs were sold during the 68-69. GT Gold was available once again, but this time with 4 additional colors. Okay, so they expanded the color palette with the plus a limited number of special orders. Very nice. Yeah, I just noticed that this video says part 1, so I don't know how many parts this is. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to feature all of them if there's 3 or 4 or 5 parts. God knows how many. But, we'll definitely at least look at part 1, and I might have to watch some of these on my own time. I think this is going to be super fascinating. But this is just fun, man. I love stuff like this. These were 4,000. Of course, they upgraded to the 302. A little bit more power and torque, and a pretty good gain in numbers as well.
And then, of course, there's the early Holden Monaros, GM's answer to Ford. And they came out all guns blazing too, using the almighty small block Chevy. HK 327, which also had Bathurst success, right through to this HT 350 Monaro here. They won Bathurst with Colin Bond at the wheel, with the newcomer at that time, Peter Brock, coming third behind the wheel of the next Holden Monaro. They're a great thing. The 350 cubic inch small block Chevy in these
Gotta say, I've heard it. You've heard it from me before if you're a veteran of the channel, and I'm never gonna stop saying it, man. I absolutely love the GM 350, the Chevy 350 small block, man. One of the most legendary motors of all time for a multitude of reasons. The lifespan of this thing, for one, and the amount of vehicles worldwide this has been used in. It's just the most versatile, budget-friendly, reliable horsepower you can get, right? They make decent power. They make good torque. They're reliable as hell. They're so easy to work on. They're so easy to find parts for. And they sound good. They look cool. It's just like I mean this as a compliment, right? It's like the most oldie, trusty, generic V8 out there. And that's why it's legendary, right? I hope calling it generic doesn't make anyone mad. It is. It's like one of the most produced, if not the most produced V8 ever. And I absolutely love it. Everyone I've ever known at some point has owned a 350. I have 2 of them in our property here. I just love them. And they have been the most reliable vehicles I've ever owned, the ones with 350. I'm just saying. They're 30 years old. They still crank over, start up, run healthy. They rev good. They drive good. They're awesome. And their use in some cool sports cars and muscle cars have been equally as great, right? They were never the biggest engine. They might not have made super power like some big block rivals or even just some other small block V8s in their class, but they were just always a solid option, right?
The Muncie gearbox, the 12
Muncie gearboxes too.
They were tough as nails and mighty fast and had a beautiful body style as well.
Like these right here, this Monaro he's talking about, this is just a solid vehicle. Sorry about the rant, but it makes me excited. This is a solid vehicle that's also fun.
They're an extremely desirable car in this age. Very rare to find a good one in good nick. This car here is surprisingly in very good condition bodily-wise from what I can see.
Yeah.
Hanging out with rust considering it's very close to the elements in this shed.
HT 350 Monaro was also the first Australian car with the Australian Touring Car Championship, with the legendary Norm Beachy at the wheel in 1970. This car was raced in more heavily modified, improved touring car regulations format. Before then, it was largely won by American muscle cars. Very interesting. Look at that awesome race spec yellow one behind there. Very cool. And of course, the 350 cubic inch Chevy V8 head. In this application, 300 horsepower, 380 pound-feet of torque, or 224 kilowatts, 515 newton meters. Very good numbers, right? And of course, look at the speed stats. Pretty damn good.
Well, there's definitely no shortage of early Monaros here, that's for sure, with this HG 350 Monaro. The HG 350 was really just a bit of an updated or facelifted version of the HT 350 Monaro.
Very GM.
Didn't really have any Bathurst heritage because this was the XU1's day, of course, but still a fantastic car and very sought after. I've got to say the 350 small block was a great choice for these cars because they were very, very tough. As anyone knows, it's very hard to kill a small block Chevy. You can rev the daylights out of those things, make fantastic power, and they just keep on going.
I'm glad. Everyone knows it. This guy knows it. He took the words right out of my mouth. You can beat on these and run them low on oil, and they might burn a little oil, all right, when they're old. But you know what? They just keep going. They keep starting. It's hot. It's cold. It doesn't matter. These things just run and chug along. Freaking love them, man.
Now, whilst the majority of these 350 Monaros in the early vintage came out with manual transmissions, believe it or not, some did actually come out with a Power Glide automatic transmission option. I can tell you for a fact,
look at that.
my brother-in-law actually owned one, and that car was legit. We've even got an advert in a magazine that proves it. The XW Falcon GT, interesting car for sure. Your standard XW GT models, you also had your GT HO models. The early Phase 1, or HO as it may have been called by some, was an interesting car too. They had a hot 351 Windsor, straight out of the Ford Performance Parts catalogue out of the US in the day.
Another legendary motor. I haven't had experience with it like I have with the 350, but we actually have had, I know it's random, but I know this was also a great performance motor, a great workhorse motor as well. Again, in tons and millions, I think, of applications across different continents. And we had a food truck, maybe like 5 years ago or so. And yeah, it was an old, like, I don't know if I can't remember if it was like a tool truck or a FedEx truck or something. But, you know, an old, like, box truck from the late 90s or so. And guess what it had? It had 351 V8 in it, Ford, of course. And so, yeah, it was really, really cool. Again, it ran really, really well. It was old, had high miles, and it chugged along. So I do very much respect a lot of the Ford engines. Even though I'm not a Ford guy, remember, I give credit where credit's due, you know?
By Al Turner, who was heading the race teams in that day and age. The little 351 Windsor would go forever and a day without failure, and they perform like you wouldn't believe. Excellent torque out of corners, rev the daylights out of night and day. They just go and go and go.
Love it.
The Phase 2 GTHO, of course, was a different story. They had a big, angry 351 Cleveland and a big camshaft. All the gear, they made awesome power, and they were a bit of a pig of a thing to drive too, which added to the excitement. That's some great racing success, but they were a little bit fragile in the early days and did blow up on the odd occasion. Either way, I reckon the XW is a fantastic thing.
That'd be an awesome car. I do love the look of these as well. They have great presence. Interestingly, Ford only rated the new Phase 2 engine at 300 base horsepower. This was an identical figure to the Windsor engine used prior. Of course, they could have fudged that, right? A lot of companies back then used to underrate their products or power by quite a lot. The all-new and better breathing Cleveland, with its aggressive, solid camshaft profile, in reality, had well over that factory quoted figure. Indeed. Alan Moffat won Bathurst in Phase 2 after leading the race from the second lap. Alan Moffat dominated in this thing, in other words. Very impressive. And of course, here are the stats. This would have been the 351 Cleveland GTHO Phase 2, and this is the XW Falcon. 300 horsepower, 380 pound-feet of torque, 224 kilowatts, 515 newton meters, and again, these are quoted. Probably, and most likely, yes, underrated. Excellent numbers here as well. As you know, that 0 to 60 6.4 is actually really fast. That's still considered a quick car now. Back then, that's really impressive. High top speed too.
On my agenda when it comes to muscle cars in the
GTS
whole scene,
Monaro, baby.
HQ GTS 350 two-door Monaro. A
yeah.
great looking car. Yes, no racing heritage, but hey, who cares? They're a sensational-looking piece of machinery.
You gotta respect that too. I know I'm a motorsport fan. I love cars with connections to motorsports, and of course, racing heritage is big deal. But some cars were just good on the street. They were good for the people. A lot of memories. Some cars were kind of street kings, if you will. And this, along with like many American cars, I could talk about, might not have had the greatest motorsport heritage, but you know what? They had a good rep out in the real world, and that counts for something too.
Holden put millions of dollars into the HQ Holden range. They did a fantastic job.
Great looking car.
These are probably one of the best looking body styles that GM ever did in those early years.
I agree.
Great looking car. Now,
especially in that color.
350.
And that's it. Dang it. So this must be a multi-part video. That's all we're going to check out for now, I suppose. Make sure you throw a like on here and comment down below if this is something you really enjoyed. I enjoyed it. This thing is right up my alley, these types of videos, looking at old cars, especially barn finds, and hearing someone talk about it and seeing some different facts and interesting stories about them. I think it's just awesome. This is going to be an excellent video for comments. If you would like to share your experience with any of these cars or, you know, excellent suggestions that are kind of like this, you know, please do so. We didn't get to see any Mopars. We didn't see any Chryslers here. But that's all right, you know, some really legendary Fords and Holdens, and what a barn find this is. You just never know what's lying inside of unassuming structure, you know, in some overgrown property in Outback or wherever, right? You just never know that something like this would be hiding in there. It's pretty fascinating, if you ask me. So, yeah, make sure to throw a like on there if you enjoyed this. Subscribe to be part of this amazing community. Cannot wait to see what you guys have to say down in the comments. And, well, that's about it for this one, y'all. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. And until next time, I'll catch you later.